Hey YouTube, it's Sonja popping on camera for yet another childhood cancer update. These are definitely not my favorite videos to do, but as I've said in some of my previous videos, the reason I do them is for awareness. My son's type of tumor, pineoblastoma, is a very rare tumor, and when he was diagnosed back in 2010, I could find nobody to connect with his type of tumor. I did finally find one woman on YouTube whose son has had that type of tumor and was able to connect with her. So I made a promise that I would do whatever I can to get awareness out, because she truly, I feel, helped save my life that day and gave me hope. And we still connect to this day. So, I have to do whatever I can to get the word out and hopefully help someone else. I'm sorry, if it's just one person to help with their child, then I've done my job, because this is one of the toughest things in the world. So anyway, I know my last update was around October. I'm sorry, but I do not go back and watch those videos because they're hard enough to make. They're harder to go back and watch. So I kind of try to remember what information I gave by the date that I did the video, because I kind of know what was going on. So anyway, it looks like my last update was after my son probably had an MRI, and I probably told you guys in that video that the tumor had progressed. And I probably left it there because that was pretty much the last update. My son was doing fine, not sick or anything. In November, he one night started having just some odd behavior. I mean, that day he was perfectly fine, his normal little self, and then all of a sudden I looked at him on the sofa, and he wasn't saying anything. So I asked him, "Are you okay?" And he just looked at me, which was really odd, because he had just been talking up a storm a few minutes later. Well, anyway, he wasn't quite okay, but he did tell me that he was tired. He just wanted to go lay down, and it was I think, past his bedtime. So I told him, okay, we can lay down. You could lie down in the bed with me. So he did. Got him in the bed, but in the meantime, I packed the bag, in case I need to take him to the hospital. A few hours later, he was tossing and turning in the bed, and I kept asking him, was he okay? And I didn't get an answer, and I finally got up and I turned on the light, and I saw that his eyes were open, but he wasn't saying anything to me. So I knew that there was something wrong, so we got him up and tried to get him in his coat and a heavier sweatshirt, because in November it was cold here. And so anyway, I was getting him up, and I noticed that his right side was pretty limp. So my first thing was that he had a stroke. That's like the first thing I thought. So we go to the hospital. It was an awful drive because he just got really, really, really sick in the car. I mean, really sick. And, my guy was sitting back there with him, helping him as he was getting sick. We had to pull over and everything. It was just a mess. I started to think that maybe I should have called an ambulance, but I knew that I didn't want to go to the closest hospital to my house, which that's usually what an ambulance will take you. I needed to get him to Children's Hospital, where he knows them. Well, anyway, we got there, and they took him right on back and started working on him. Got him calm and a little bit responsive, and we got admitted and all that good stuff. And then a day or so later, I'm not gonna go through everything in this video, but he started having seizures. Luckily, I always slept in the bed with my son when we were in the hospital, unless we were in ICU, because the bed just isn't big enough in ICU. But we were on the floor, and I happened to be sleeping with him, and I heard him making this strange noise. So I turned on a little light, and I saw he was doing this strange thing with his mouth. So I called the nurse in, but then he stopped. Then he started back later, and they were saying it didn't quite look like seizure activity. Then they rapidly responded, the ICU team. That means they rushed the ICU team up to observe him. And nobody was really sure if he was having seizures, but they weren't positive that he wasn't. So they went ahead and sent us to ICU just to be on the safe side and monitor him, which is good because by the time we got down there, he started having seizures and he had to be intubated because the medicine that they gave him to stop the seizures compromised his breathing. It was really, 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 really tough time. Because that was the first time my son had ever had seizures. So anyway, we get through that hospital stay. He has to go through therapy, physical therapy, speech therapy, occupational therapy, because it affected him just that badly. He was able to walk a little bit. He was really determined to walk, and he would, some and talk, but his speech was definitely affected by all of this. So he was never quite the same after that. He got some better, and then in December he started showing symptoms of a virus. I took him in. They thought he had a virus. I took him to oncology. They thought he had a virus because virus was going on. I would not let them do MRIs on him anymore because we stopped doing the physical. I'm sorry, we stopped doing the chemo because it was just too much for him. He wasn't, his immune system wasn't recovering fast enough, so we just opted to not do it. So I really didn't see a point in doing an MRI just because I just didn't want to subject him to that. We had been through so much already, and I just didn't feel the need to. But I did let them do a shunt series, which is a CT scan, which is worse than an MRI, but he doesn't have to be sedated for it, and it's really fast. And my son had a shunt, and that's, any added fluid that he would have had on the brain, the shunt helps move it out, so he doesn't have any fluid buildup on his brain. Well, the shunt series will determine if there's something going on with the shunt or not, and they can fix that. So that's one of the reasons we agreed to have it done, because he was showing some signs that something could possibly be wrong with the shunt. So they did the shunt series, but in that they saw that the tumor was probably progressing, and that's why he was having these symptoms. So they upped the steroid. He got some better. In February 14th, he was talking that day, we watched TV shows and everything, and then that evening he started having some problems breathing. It was like he threw up, and we thought that maybe he aspirated, so we ended up taking him to the emergency room to get him checked out. He got admitted. Well, while we were in the emergency room, I turned him around in the wheelchair, and he was having a seizure. So he hadn't had any seizures at home since that time in November. So we were admitted. We went through the whole thing again. We were in ICU, and things were just not looking good. So in the meantime, before we went there, I knew we were out of options here. I knew my son was progressing, and someone contacted us about doing cannabis oil. So I researched it, reached out to people, asked them their opinions. I had heard of cannabis oil before, on someone with a brain tumor and how it has an effect on the brain, and some study that showed that, but I never paid it a lot of attention because I'm in an illegal state and I didn't know what to do with that information. At the time, I think my son was in remission, but I always kept it in the back of my mind. So I researched and researched and researched, and so we decided to take my son to Colorado, because it was my last ditch hope, and I knew that if we didn't get my son to Colorado, he would die, and I would never want to look back and wonder what if I would have done it. So things fell perfectly into place for us to go. I really didn't plan to go to Colorado. I was just trying to get to a legal state. I thought we would end up in California because we already know people there, but things fell perfectly into place for us to go to Colorado. So that's where we went. We went there February 25th, I believe. So as soon as he got out of the hospital, I think my son got out of the hospital on a Thursday. That Monday, we left going to Colorado, which was a tough drive there, because it's about 14 hours from where we live. We did not drive straight through, but it was still tough getting there because he was very, very ill at that time. So we got there, started him on cannabis oil. He did show improvement. He wasn't talking or anything by this time. He did show improvement, like he would hear sounds and he would start looking at them where before he wouldn't. I'm sorry, that's my dog you hear. So he showed improvement, and then the improvement stopped. I'm sorry about that. So then, he started to seem to go downhill, have a turn for the worse. In, I guess, maybe mid to late April, this started happening, and it just went down. So I actually went there with my mom because my guy had to stay here and work, and my other son stayed home as well. So it was really tough being all the way in Colorado, and my family was kind of split up. But anyway, I called my guy and my son, and they came out to Colorado for a while because things were not going well. And anyway, I don't want to go into all the details about everything that went on there, but my son ended up passing away on April 28th. So it's been a really tough journey. Really hard. So yeah, that was our journey. Of course, it did not end the way that we would have hoped it to end at all. Our journey continues. We are now advocating for cannabis because I have seen so many people that it has helped, and I just do not think that it's right that people have to uproot themselves to try to get the help, when oftentimes things that our doctors have to offer us are not sufficient, and cannabis is a plant. So, and I do not, in my research, I have not seen where anybody has died from cannabis. Maybe there have been some deaths with cannabis and other things in their systems, but I have seen no reported deaths from cannabis alone. And I am quite certain that cannabis did not hurt my son at all, where I know that chemo caused tons and tons and tons and tons of damage, and so did radiation. I don't regret anything because I did what I knew to do. So I really have no regrets. I do wonder certain things, of course. I'm his mom, and I would. I mean, anybody who lost someone that they love so dearly, always, you're going to always have questions. But I have peace knowing that I did everything that I could that brings my heart joy. And I know that my son knows that I did everything that I could. So I just wanted to get this video out because there were some other things that I want to focus on my videos, but I needed to get this video out. I still hope it helps someone. I hope it gives people something to think about. Everybody should try to keep an open mind. You never know what life is going to bring you. I knew nothing about cancer. I'm sure I've talked about this in some of my other videos. It doesn't run in my family. We've always been pretty healthy eaters. We're a lot healthier now, but I've always been a pretty healthy eater since before my son was born. You know, I breastfed him until he didn't want to do it anymore. I mean, they even pumped it and just put it in the bottle. So he was breastfed for a long time. So I did lots of things, you know, and he never used any commercial products on himself or anything like that. I always just used shea butter or olive oil or something like that for him when he was young. Always organic baby foods. Never had candy. I think he had his first taste of a marshmallow when he was 6. And that's because they had him at the daycare, and they wouldn't give them to him because they knew I had very strict rules. But they talked me into letting him taste them. And this was before he had cancer. You know, I've just always been like that. So you never know what life is going to throw you. And I just want people to have an open mind, and I just want to bring awareness around this issue. This may be my last childhood cancer update. I really don't have anything further, I don't think, to say on that issue, but you never know. I mean, you never know, because I am not sure what direction my life is going to take. But anyway, I thank you guys so much for supporting me on this journey. So many of you have left me comments, and I do appreciate it. YouTube was not my original platform to really share my son's story. I share it on Facebook. He has a Facebook page, and that's where we get the most of our support. But I'm trying to use as many platforms as I can to get the word out, and I really do appreciate all of the love and support. And so at the end of this video, which I'm concluding now, I will share a couple of pictures of my son because I've never shared them on his page, on YouTube. I did have a video up, and some of you may have seen it, for just a few days for those people who were not able to make it to a celebration of life, for them to be able to view it, but I've taken it down and I won't put it back up. But I will post now that he's no longer with us a couple of his pictures so you guys can see what he looks like. And I appreciate you guys so much for watching this video.